Okay, right now we are going to go over this ESPN article slash interview. This was a good little interview right here. I liked it. So we're going to run through it. Then I'm going to come back at the end with my commentary. This is about ESPN explaining why they did not pick Canelo Alvarez.
Wolf, score 1 for Crawford here. Pound for pound lists are about the eye test and the accomplishments for me. No one since Floyd Mayweather Jr. has consistently dominated, from lightweight to junior welterweight to welterweight, like Crawford. He was the lineal champion at lightweight, undisputed champion at junior lightweight, and now he's the bogeyman of the welterweight division. Alvarez is one of the best fighters in this generation, but in his 3 biggest fights, Mayweather, Gennady Golovkin twice, he has a loss, a draw, which many considered a loss, and a win. What separates Crawford is that no one has come close to beating him. His speed, his defense, his intelligence, his ability to adapt, his power, he regularly makes his opponents look like nobodies. It's been nearly 5 years since somebody has gone the distance with Crawford. Alvarez is boxing's biggest money man, but Crawford is boxing's king. But Ben, I know you're itching to make your argument here. Why am I wrong? Baby, for me, it's not really much of a discussion. When you look at Alvarez's history over the past 10 years, Canelo's level of opposition is truly stunning. Starting from 2011, when Alvarez won his first major welterweight title, he has been taking on some of the sport's top names and dispatching them with relative ease. The only exception is Mayweather, who was wise to fight Canelo early in his career and at a catchweight that was a couple of pounds lighter than Alvarez's usual range at that time. Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Arislandi Lara, Golovkin. That's just a sampling of the names on Canelo's belt. On top of that, Canelo has become more impressive as he's moved throughout his career. He can go from masterful defense and counterpunching to a bullying assault, even against someone who posed matchup problems like Callum Smith. For me, that's the biggest separating factor between Alvarez and Crawford. Whether it's Crawford's fault or not, he just hasn't been able to secure opponents of the same caliber. Wolf, look, I can't argue with you here that Alvarez has a better opponent resume than Crawford, but I'm not going to knock Crawford for the evils of boxing. Crawford is the meanest and maybe the scariest fighter in boxing. Why is the best fighter in the division punished because the other ones in the division won't fight him, using the other side of the street argument as an excuse? How do we know these supposed elite PBC fighters wouldn't face the same fate in the ring as everyone else who fights Bud? I'd prefer to look at what Bud has done rather than stressing about whom he hasn't faced. I'll give Canelo credit for evolving as a boxer, but I still have stuck in my mind how Mayweather made him look ordinary for 12 rounds. And you can make an argument that he didn't win either of his 2 bouts with Golovkin. I also have issues with Canelo failing multiple drug tests for tainted meat. There are too many questions on Canelo for me to lift him above Crawford, who might be the cleanest and meanest man in boxing. Baby, the drug test failures should not be overlooked. That's always going to be a part of Canelo's legacy, no matter how he feels about it. But I think Alvarez should get credit for not having any issues aside from the situation after the first Golovkin fight. And as I said, the combination of his in-ring talents and the guys he has beaten is unparalleled in the sport. That being said, I know it's not enough for you. So since Alvarez is not your number 1 pound-for-pound guy, whom does Canelo need to beat for you to move him to the top of your ranking? Wolf, that's a good question. The gap between Crawford and Alvarez, between number 1 and number 2, is closer for me than between Alvarez and Naya Inu at number 2 and number 3. Assuming Crawford doesn't get another marquee opponent, a convincing Alvarez win over Golovkin or WBC middleweight champion Jermall Charlo would be enough for me to move him up to number 1.
The truth is, it's not about Terence Crawford's resume, who he has fought, what Canelo Alvarez has done. It's not about any of that. It's not about that at all. See, do you know that Vasily Lomachenko has been declared the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter since 2017? Officially ESPN 2018. But he's held that spot since 2007. Okay? During that period in time, people who advocate for Canelo Alvarez as heavily as they do, they didn't say anything. They were silent and very hush-hush and light-tongued on the issue. It's not hard to tell. How does Teofimo Lopez beating Vasily Lomachenko basically forcefully pushing Terrence Crawford to the number one spot? How all of a sudden it's a debate about Canelo Alvarez being number one pound for pound? I have plenty of videos out there saying before, when people were saying Vasily Lomachenko was pound for pound, I said Canelo Alvarez was pound for pound. And if you're not going to include him because Canelo Alvarez was not included, then it's Terrence Bud Crawford. The video's out there for those who want to do the research. But for right now, that's the only thing you need to know about this situation. That in 4 years, well, finna be 4 years, and that's all you need to know about the situation, is that in all those years, you never heard from Canelo fans, fanboys, whatever you want to call yourselves, Canelo soldiers. You never heard from them until Terrence Bud Crawford got the number one spot on ESPN. Now, we all know pound for pound is a fictitious title. It really depends on one's preference. There is no definitive criteria to what makes pound for pound. And not only that, Canelo is pound for pound in Ring Magazine. Does that not count for anything? You tell me why the sudden uproar and the fight to have Canelo considered the number one pound for pound fighter when Vasily Lomachenko, somebody who hasn't done more than Canelo and Bud Crawford, was sitting at the number one pound for pound spot for years, and they never said two words about it.